It's actually been quite some time since Anbernic last released a product, and that's actually kind of refreshing, taking a break to really focus on design. But in this case, Anbernic sort of is just recycling something that they already have. The all-new Anbernic RG CubeXX takes the familiar design from the Anbernic RG Cube that we've seen recently and adapting that to a cheaper, smaller form factor with a 4-inch screen and the same H700 chipset we've seen on all these other devices. It has a 720 by 720 full IPS screen, which is honestly a kind of an interesting resolution if I'm being honest. It comes from the fact that the screen is almost a perfect square, hence the Cube name. And of course, it runs its standard Linux-based operating system that is standard on all these XX devices. It'll have 1 GB of RAM, Bluetooth 4.2, Wi-Fi, supporting all your normal Wi-Fi bands and whatnot, while also having a 3800 mAh battery with anywhere between 4 to 6 hours of battery life, depending on what you're playing. And as per usual, most of these XX line devices, as I've mentioned before, has the H700 chipset, which means it supports PSP, PS1, Super Nintendo, Nintendo DS, and 64, all the Game Boy stuff, and all the older Nintendo and Sega systems and stuff like that. So it's treading water at this point. Like we're familiar. We know what we're going to get yourself into when it comes to this. And that comes with its downsides and upsides. Downside, this device has nothing particularly interesting about it outside of its, initial form factor. But it also means that we already know that this device is going to have great support for third-party or custom firmwares. And at this point, there are so many options out there that honestly, you can choose whatever you want. Some have better performance for certain systems, some will be more optimized for more visual appeal, have a more console-like experience, and there are just some that are just overall just kind of garbage, but I don't really care to talk about those that much. This form factor has proven itself to be very interesting for certain use cases. I see Game Boy being probably one of the best games to play on this device, because the more square type screen aspect ratio found on the original Game Boy and Game Boy Color would make this the perfect home for those systems. Though you might end up with some letterboxing, but that could be fine depending on, whether or not how good the black levels are on the screen. Another game system people seem to really enjoy on this Cube device is DS and 3DS. Granted, you can't play 3DS on the H700 chipset, but on the original RG Cube with the T820 chipset is proven itself to be quite powerful, and people have enjoyed 3DS emulation quite well on that. And it just offers a very unique experience by having both screens, top and bottom, on the same screen, while not necessarily having full space for either one of them, but being able to really enjoy a full screen up top and a less important smaller screen below that in a really nice frame. Though I don't know if that same support will come to this device with its original DS emulator, but I'm sure you'll be able to get that kind of, visual appeal and being able to arrange your screens that way in any of the custom firmwares that are out there. When it comes to the price of this device, it is expected to be around the $70-ish all the other XX devices are. I recently made a video going through all my favorite budget emulators, and a lot of them are the Anbernic XX line of devices, and I think this is a decent add-on to that, though I wish it did not have the RGB analog stick rings, because that honestly bugs me to no end. I usually set it to one static color or off, and that's it, and it truly does bug me because it just is kind of distracting, and especially if you're playing at night, that brightness on those rings are just brutal to the eyes. So I always just try to turn it off when I can, and then I just sort of forget about it. Honestly, don't know why that has become such a popular trend in these emulator devices. All these companies releasing devices, and they all have RGB stick gates. It's just, really annoying to me at least. I think this device would slot in quite well. I don't think this is necessarily a device many people should upgrade to. If you're looking at already purchasing the original RG Cube, but you don't necessarily need all the extra power that system might offer, this is a great alternative because it uses the same 1:1 aspect ratio screen. So this is pretty perfect for people out there who wanted that, square type aspect ratio device, but didn't want to pay the $200 the original RG Cube costs and are comfortable making the sacrifice in terms of performance for when this device comes out relatively soon. And honestly, this device sort of slots in quite well into their current lineup. The current XX lineup basically covers all potential vectors of emulation types. They have multiple different sizes, like the 40 and the 35 lines. They have different aspect ratios or layouts, like the DMG styled ones or the H styled ones for the horizontal fans out there. It also comes in a folding clamshell form factor like the SP, though that one only comes in a 3.5 inch size. No 4-inch model for that one, at least yet. Something I wish they'd done with this device is switch to an Android operating system. I'm not a huge fan, as I've talked about in previous videos, of the Linux-based operating system found on these devices. And frankly, I just vastly prefer Android, and I don't know if there's a particular reason why they choose not to use Android on these devices. I'm unaware if there's any particular compatibility issues you might find with the H700 chipset on Android. At the moment, I'm not aware of any Android version that you can just download onto these devices, like a custom firmware or anything like that, which would be sick to know if anybody's working on that. If you are aware of one, though, leave a link down below. I would love to see it, or leave in the comments or something like that, and just mention it so I'm aware and I can start looking for it. This Anbernic RG CubeXX device is actually pretty interesting. It's taking the more expensive $200 Anbernic RG Cube form factor in sort of downscaling that to a more affordable price point, and I think that's pretty cool. I would love to know what you guys think. Are you excited to see the Cube form factor come down in price? Are you planning on picking this one up? Have you been waiting for this device to come out? I would love to hear what you guys think down below. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. All the other social media coverage down below. And 2 things before the sign off. Apologies if the sound quality is a bit wonky in this one. I'm not at my typical recording place. And tomorrow's my birthday, so happy birthday to me. And last but not least, have a wonderful day.